Good morning, Rise. Welcome to another edition of Lunch with Gina. We're really excited to have you here today. It's a beautiful week. It's the week before the official start of summer. So we're happy to finally see, at least here on the East Coast, some consistent sun and warm weather. But there's a lot of other things that are happening in the springtime that we really feel that families of color who are applying in 2016-17 for the following year admission. So you're going to be applying this fall. You got a lot of things to do, but we can get you to get a jump on all of that by starting right now. So we're really excited to have with us this morning an admissions team. So I said admissions team because they know what they're talking about. I think you should really take heed to what both Karine and Crystal have to say. So we have Brooklyn Friends School with us this morning. We have Karine, who is the Director of All School Enrollment. Good morning, Karine.
Good morning, Gina.
And we also have Crystal, who is the Director of Admission Outreach. And we thought, hi, Crystal, how are you? We thought we would gather them here briefly just to give a heads up on the top things that families of color should be doing right now if they are applying this fall for admissions. And this is across all divisions and grade levels. So we're going to go ahead and get started with a question for both Crystal and Karine. You can maybe answer together or choose one to answer this. What are your top 3 things that families of color can be doing right now as they prepare to apply in the fall for independent schools? And maybe consider all the divisions. You know, it might be different for a pre-K family versus a middle school family or an upper school family.
So our process is online. Everything actually that we are exists online. So one of the main things this spring and throughout the summer is for families to look on our website or any websites and familiarize themselves with the school, at least virtually. So find out about the programs virtually, and then also find out to the extent that schools have those that information updated, find out about the process that they'll be engaging with over the course of next season.
Mm-hmm. And when they're online right now in the spring, they will not be able to actually start the application process. Your application is not live just yet, is it?
Not for next year, but some schools like ours still, I mean, you wouldn't be able to access it, but some schools have their applications from the past year available so that they can read them, familiarize themselves with them. Some of it might change, so knowing that in the back of their mind, but understanding what an application process, at least broadly, looks like is accessible on many websites. And you know, at the very least, the steps to the process are available on most websites, including ours as well. So you know, understanding exactly what one has to do in order to be able to complete the admissions process. Most families will have access to that on the Brooklyn Friends website as well as any other school's website.
Okay. Crystal, do you have anything to add to that?
I would say also one of the things that's important is that if you know families at our school or other independent schools, you know, just to connect with them, ask them how their experiences have been, ask them, you know, what the process was like for them transitioning, going through the admissions process and then transitioning into the school itself. Just making those connections, I think, are very important for families before they apply.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So Karine, what are the benefits do you see of utilizing the spring and summer months for families who will be applying in the fall? What do you think they should be getting out of these months? And is it ever too, and I guess part 2 to that question is it ever too early for even a young family? I just found out I was pregnant, or maybe I have a 2-year-old. Is it ever too early to begin to look? So I guess that's a 2-part question.
I think it depends on what part of their child's development or where what ages their child is. I would say to engage with the school, at least knowing some aspect of who the strengths of a child, what your philosophy as a family is. That's important before engaging with a school. Sometimes, you know, engaging with schools helps shape that, because you might come with no idea of what your philosophy is. But, you know, I would say really understanding the strengths of your child, what your child's needs are first, before then going to a school is actually quite important, because then, you know, you'll be thinking too broadly. You know, families of 2-year-olds should know their children, and so being able to start the process at that point, I think, is totally appropriate. Maybe slightly earlier. And then, what was the other part of your question? I'm sorry.
I think you actually answered both of them, because I think the spring and the summer, I was like, well, what are the benefits of kind of like beginning to think about the process now as opposed to waiting until the fall? We really want our families and our network to take advantage of spring and summer, so that ideally once the fall rolls in, that rush is no longer there. You feel a little bit more confident about the process. But I think just based off what you said, Karine, this is a great opportunity to get to know your child, right? And what their strengths are, and what challenges you think your child might face, just based off of their personality and how they're operating right now. But it's not in a vacuum, because our children are constantly developing. So I think, you know, parents should know that this is a great time of the year to get to know who your children are and get to know who you are as a family. And that's very much what we try to do with Rise Family Membership as well. Help parents get a grip on that. And so, Crystal, you are a grad. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think this time of year also allows for families to be organized. So that you can merge the ideas of who your child is, what your philosophy as a family pertaining to what you want for an education for your child are, to really being able to listen to what admissions professionals are telling you, what you see on the walls, what you hear in a classroom, see in a classroom, without the pressures of then I have to apply within a few days. This allows you to be able to really look at the truth, be able to apply that to yourself, and then organize over the summer.
Right. So spring tours, take advantage of spring tours right now, because that's what you will get to see on the walls, you'll get to hear in the halls. Any dates for Brooklyn Friends School for spring tours?
Well, we just finished our spring tours, but for next year, we usually post our tours the end of March for April and May tours. Our school year is ending, so we don't have any tours, but we do have other opportunities to see the school, like this next week, we have our all-school art show that we invite the community to come participate in. And so, you know, community members from, you know, our community, the external community, can come and experience that aspect of the school firsthand.
And I encourage families to take advantage of the non-kind of admission recruitment-based opportunities to see a school, because, you know, honestly, you know, everybody's on point and on show. But when you can take advantage of going to a real school community event where you get to see parents and students and kind of feel the vibe of every day at the school, I think is quite telling in what that community would feel like for you if you were enrolled there. So thank you for that. And we'll make sure to get that information and post it for our Rise Network to go see the art show at Brooklyn Friends School coming up soon. So Crystal, you are a graduate of Brooklyn Friends School, am I correct?
Yes, you are correct.
Okay. So this is a really great question for you. How can parents and students prepare for the academic rigors of an independent school education, the social and emotional part of that, the economic part, and perhaps even the racial culture of independent schools? That's a loaded question. I know it. But I think that all of these things are germane to what an independent school experience is going to be for a family. And I like families to go in with their eyes wide open about all of that. So kind of recap, you know, based on your own experience.
Yeah. I mean, I think the landscape of independent schools is completely different when I was a student. You know, it was the 90s, so it was a completely different ball game. I think that now we're in 2016 and moving forward, the landscape is definitely greater, and there are a lot more families of color applying to independent schools, which I think is phenomenal, and it's really important that we have more families of color in schools representing and you know, showing who they are in their communities. I think one of the most important thing is to develop relationships with the administrators and teachers that are in the school, so that they know your child or children, and they can get to know who they are academically, know who they are personally, and so that it starts to build relationships also with you as parents, so that they can see the whole family in a broader scope, and not just seeing the child. I think one of the other important thing is to be present at the school. And so if, you know, we all know that everyone has to work and there are other commitments that are involved, but I think, you know, as much as you can, show up for, you know, meetings, if there are coffee hours, if there are events, if you can volunteer. I think that's something that's important. Make sure that you are a presence in the school community. Also, I think developing allies is important as well. Whether there are other parents of colors that can be allies, or families that are not of color as allies, I think that's important to have those support people, you know, behind you. If you have questions, if you have concerns, you know, these people can be advocates for you. Whether they're talking to administrators or just other teachers. I think that's important. Every school has a different meaning for academic rigor. So I think really getting to know those schools and what they mean in terms of academic rigor is important. So ask tons of questions. Ask questions of the teachers, ask questions of the administrators, ask how they can support your child of color. You know, I think that's something that is important to be able to have kind of those questions in your back pocket, and understanding what the support systems are in place for those students that need either more enrichment or need support because they're struggling in a particular area. I think those are key things.
Great, awesome. Yeah, our affinity groups are really quite powerful in being peer advocates, in helping to create a safe space for families of color to navigate our schools. Mm-hmm. And I agree with you. You know, we have to be present as families. I don't care how you do it. And even if it's at drop off in the morning, or you just check in once a month, you have to be present, because I think it's similar to, you know, having a family member in the hospital. Like, you got to show up. You want the best. You show up and you make your presence known, and people are alert, right? And I think it's a really great way to build community and relationships at independent schools. So either one of you, Karine or Crystal, can answer this question. As families begin to communicate with admission leaders like yourself, what questions are you expecting parents to ask to better understand the school philosophy, culture, and curriculum? So what type of questions are you expecting? I think parents sometimes forget that when they're in the room, when they're in a space where they're learning about a school, and the opportunity comes to ask questions, they kind of lay back. But I think you all are expecting questions, are you not?
Absolutely. We are. Absolutely. You know, we're a Quaker school, and many people, including myself, you know, when I came to become a faculty member here, didn't understand what that meant. Maybe understand it historically, but don't understand how it lives in a school. So asking definitely of us questions about what does Quakerism mean in real time for a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, you know, a 5th grader, a 9th grader. What does that mean? What will be the experience for my child and for my family, being that we're at a Quaker school? Other schools have also philosophies that are particular to them, so asking questions about those philosophies and how they actually live on a day-to-day would be important for us. That's what one of the questions we expect is about the Quaker aspect of the school.
I think also, upon doing your research over the spring and summer, if and getting to know your child and what your child's interest is, if there's a particular interest, we expect parents to ask us or other admissions people about that particular interest, whether that school can meet that student's interest. So if a student has an interest in art, or if a student has an interest in math, really asking how the school can support that student in building up their strengths in those particular areas that they're really passionate about.
We also, we encourage families to be vigilant, and on a tour, if they notice something on a tour during the interviews, asking more about what they might have noticed. Also being questions about how not only one supports students who have particular strengths, but along the way, what happens if my child is struggling in something, as Crystal mentioned? What would that look like situationally on an ongoing basis? What does that look like? Does the school include families in that conversation? Does it not? Asking questions about any aspect of support, because one is assuming, we are assuming that a family who's coming in, whether they're coming in for preschool, kindergarten, 6th grade, or 9th grade, will want their child to complete the program. And so that's a long time. 4 years is a long time. 13 years is a long time. And so what does support look like over time as you're getting to know my child? How are you propelling their strengths? How are you supporting the things that they need to work on over time?
Yeah, you brought up that timeline. Depending on when you do come in as a family. My family came in kindergarten, and we've been at our school for 10 years now. And you do develop relationships, but it happens because you have to be vigilant. And I really appreciate that use of that word. You have to be vigilant. You have to be purposeful in this whole process to, I think, really get the most out of this beneficial educational opportunity called an independent school. So I'm going to ask this last question, because I know that you've heard some questions that you really wish you would have never heard, and you hope no one asks the same question. Did I say that right? Asks the same question again. Who's seen The Prep School Negro? Has anybody seen it?
Yeah.
Because there's a part where Andre Robert Lee says he used the word ask, and I think it has a different meaning when you say it. Maybe the way I said it. Was it ask? Oh, which is the right way? Is it ask?
Ask or ask?
Yeah. So what do you hope that no one asks again?
This question was hard for us, because we actually do want families to unpack their thinking with us, and ask as many questions as possible, even if they are uncomfortable asking it, even if they think they shouldn't be asking it. One question that I don't like, I think because it puts me on the spot, is asking question, like trying to elicit a response from me that gets into me describing my personal negative experiences about the school. I think I'm not comfortable with that, because this is not about me in a lot of ways. If one were to ask that, there are other ways to ask it, related to the strategic plan of the school, related to maybe things that I, see as areas for improvement. But, asking me, what is negative about the school seems defensive to me and puts me on the spot. And parents have asked that of students before, and it puts them on the spot. I think, I get the idea of the question and the spirit of the question, wanting to unpack every aspect of the school so you know what to expect, but there are definitely ways to better ask that question without putting someone on the spot.
Yeah. So I'm going to recap what we just talked about as the top things to be doing this spring and summer in preparation for the fall. And let's just start with asking good questions. asking the right question. So take your time over the summer to develop those questions. So as opposed to asking, well, what's negative about the school? We get what you want to know. You want to know all aspects, because most of us have drank the Kool-Aid, and we're real excited about our schools. But perhaps you would ask, what areas do you feel have room for improvement? I mean, that's that glass half full type question as opposed to glass half empty. So asking really great questions, you can develop that during the spring and the summer. Be vigilant in this process. It's a long process. The application process in and of itself, forget about whether or not you're going to be there 4 years or 13 years. Look for spring tours, and if they're done, look for some events. This is a time of the year where a lot of schools are having spring events. See if you can drop in, just to see what the culture of the school feels like to you without it being recruitment time or admissions time. Do a lot of research, spend time on the websites, right? Finding out what you can. You might even be able to get a glimpse at what an application looks like. It's not live now at most of our schools, but at least you can say, well, this is the type of information I need to gather. Get to know your child and get to know you over the summer. I think we take for granted that we know who our children are, but how would you describe your child, right? What strengths do you want to continue to see, and what strengths do you want a school to be able to pull out of your child, and what perceived challenges that you think that there may be that you can kind of be aware of so that you can support your child. Am I missing anything?
No, I think you hit it right on the nail.
Yes.
Okay, so Brooklyn Friends School, a Quaker school in Brooklyn. It is, can you just give your address again and confirm the grade levels that families can apply to in the fall?
Sure. Our main building is in 375 Pearl Street in downtown Brooklyn. We also have a separate building on Lawrence Street for our high school students. We start in threes with students entering the threes program or becoming 3 as of the fall, and we end in 12th grade.
Perfect. So remember these two faces, Karine Blemur-Chapman and Crystal Backus, because these are the folks that you gotta have to connect with when it comes to the admissions process, and they're looking forward to seeing you. RISE is really proud to have them as a member school and looks forward to a lot more programming with them with regards to recruitment as well as retention. So I thank you ladies so much. Enjoy the summer, and we'll check back in with you really soon, okay?
Thank you.
All right, have a good one. Bye.
Bye.